The last addition to the Digimon Story series was Hacker's Memory back in 2017. So you know, in the trailer for Digimon Story Time Stranger leaked ahead of the Sony State of Play, the general response was,
"Hell, it's about time."
What we know right now is not a lot. It is part of the Digimon Story series, and it doesn't seem to be making any major deviations, which, depending on how you feel about the previous games, could be a good or bad thing. However, one deviation from, say, even the last couple of Digimon Stories games is a refocus onto the digital world and back onto the Digimon. In Cyber Sleuth, you used Eden as this kind of halfway house between the digital world and the real world, which kind of makes it feel like you were hanging around in a Discord server rather than actually playing the game that you were there to play. They've also furthered this focus on the Digimon by giving us more ways to interact with them. We see this in 3 separate instances where the protagonist is riding on a Digimon. Garurumon on land, Wamon in this undersea zone, and Birdramon in maybe some kind of action sequence? Using your Digimon to traverse the world is a lot more interesting than how it felt in Cyber Sleuth, where you kind of just had to meet like a level requirement or a certain time in the game, then you could use the code break on a particular wall to just progress. They just locked you out of different zones by saying, hey, here's a wall, you can't get through it until you've progressed. Whereas finding a way to ride on a Digimon and then being able to say, now you can go here, or now you can do this. It's something that definitely feels cooler to me. Now, while I have been saying this focus on the Digimon is good, they might have lost some points for me because we haven't seen your squad following you around in the overworld like you would in the previous Digimon Story titles. The more Digimon I get to see in my Digimon game, the better. I'm here for the Digimon. I would want to collect a bunch of cool Digimon and then see them rolling around with me in the overworld. But it is important to note that in previous titles as well, when you're in the real world, you generally don't have your Digimon following you. That could just be what's happened here. They did show a fair few elements of you being in the real world without your Digimon, and then the elements where you are in the Digimon world, you are riding on a Digimon, so maybe they disappear from behind you like you would in Pokemon titles. They haven't yet shown us how traversing between zones work, or I didn't notice if there was a mini-map to be able to see where you were and where you were going, but I really hope that they do make moving between zones and finding things a little bit easier than they have in previous games. But so far, we have actually seen a decent amount of Digimon. We've seen all of the Agumon line, including Omnimon at the very end of the trailer. Tidamon has made an appearance, and we see a whole host of other Digimon in the background, including Seadramon, Vikemon, Colemon, Scorpiomon, Divemon, Blimpmon, Kawagamon, Kuamon, Locomon, and my guess is that this Digimon in the background is possibly Galacticmon. There are also some phantoms that we see possessing people and likely function like the Eaters did in Cyber Sleuth. There is also a Satyr Digimon that will likely tie us to the larger story at hand. And while this might be a new Digimon to a lot of people, this is actually an established Digimon called Agiomon. I think that's how it's pronounced. And we could go into where that's come from and the evolution line, but if you want to avoid spoilers, I recommend not looking that up. And I won't go into it in this video, just to make sure that we aren't giving away too much. I want to be speculative, not spoilery. What I will say is back in 2017, the former Digimon game director Kazumasa Habu had said that the next Digimon game was going to have a focus on the Olympus 12. These are Digimon based on gods from Greek mythology. If we are sticking to that mythological theme, then a satyr is totally appropriate, and we may even see them fill kind of a mentor role like we do with Phil and Hercules and, well, Hercules. This is also why I think this Digimon could be Galacticmon, because it might be a reference to this art from the Digimon TCG in BT11, where you can see Galacticmon in the background, and then just little tiny in the foreground you see Marsmon about to fight him. So, I don't know, maybe there's something to do with that. I know why a lot of people would be looking up this video is to see, well, what is the combat like, and unfortunately we haven't really seen any of the combat. They showed us maybe snippets, if you can call them that, but they didn't have any of the overlay on, so you can't tell what the abilities are, what health looks like, or anything like that, which really means that we are just guessing at this point. But my assumption is that things are sticking much the same as they have in previous games. It is definitely a turn-based JRPG. Something that might be important to point out is that, and maybe this sequence does just happen early on in the game, but they are only using 2 Digimon in this battle, and previously you've been able to have 3 in your front row with another 6 in the back or 3 in the back as your party. Since they are only using 2 Digimon, that could mean they are making a change and just trying to refine combat a little bit, but we will just have to wait for more trailers to see. I personally would like it if they did change up combat a little bit, maybe just make things feel a bit more deliberate, strategic, particularly fresh. I mean, we have the old games already. We can always go back to them to play them if we really want to. We want the new game to feel like a new game. I do also really hope that they take out those long-winded points of exposition in the story where they do just sit you down and say, here's what's happening, here's the plot, here's what's going on in 15 paragraphs at a time. It's just really grinds the game to a halt for me. I was hoping that with the new game director, there was more of a chance that the storytelling was going to get a bit of a shake-up, but the new game director, Tetsuya Okubo, was working on Digimon Cyber Sleuth, so he was there when these decisions were made. I did do a bit of research to see what other games he's worked on. Fire Emblem Fates might be one of the other biggest titles that he's been on, and I really do just hope that in his experience he's learnt some lessons from previous games and can deliver a new, fresh story. What is the story going to be about? We already know that the Olympus 12 is probably involved, and hell, that's probably where this train is actually headed. But what does the title mean? Time Stranger. Does sound a bit like a bad translation, but let's try and work through it. First off, the narrator does say the battle to alter destiny begins and to seize the future together in a bond that transcends time. My guess is that there will be some timey-wimey connection between us and the new Digimon where we end up going back in time by sending our data back in time or something and turning into a Digimon and then helping ourselves. But a more likely possibility is that it's the protagonist that you don't pick that ends up doing that, and you build a relationship with them throughout the story, and then that happens. The reason that I say this is that when you see the new Digimon for the first time, it does have a cut to one of the protagonists, and that probably references a link to knowing them before the story actually occurs. Is that maybe I need to put on some tin foil, but that's what I'm thinking at the moment. The good news about the trailer is that they do already give us an idea of what the future is that we are trying to fight against. That comes at the very start of the trailer when you see this massive explosion, and you can already infer some things from this shot. You can see that the city is being leveled by this blast, but the buildings are already in ruin. Additionally, in the distance, you can see some cityscape that hasn't been destroyed, meaning this is likely ground zero, and whatever happened here, we then need to put an end to before it expands, leveling the rest of the world. It's also at this point that we hear an ominous voice that could potentially be the villain of the story. What they say is, break free, become unbound from the laws that govern reality, to turn the gears of time once again. My guess comes from what I think the narrator says next, separate to the ominous voice. An apocalypse looms over parallel worlds. I think they're trying to hint that Apocalypse is actually the villain of this story. And when you look at his lore, that actually makes a lot of sense. Apocalypse's arrival was foreseen in ancient prophecies. He came from beyond the wall of fire and was born from the feelings of jealousy and hatred belonging to Digimon who died during Digivolution. A sadistic and tormented soul, Apocalypse wants to make the digital and real worlds into living underworlds to justify the darkness that composes them. His existence generates chaos in the digital world and in space-time itself. Space-time reference, tick. Destruction of both worlds, tick. That link from the Wall of Fire kind of makes me think that there's a Hades to like Zeus reference, which marries into the Olympus 12, tick. I'll let you speculate more in the comments. I do want to see what people have to say. There's definitely people out there that are more knowledgeable about Digimon than I am, so please have those discussions. I will jump into them and be trying to speculate as well, but it'd be great to hear what you think. While you're there, leave a like and subscribe. I try to make funny YouTube videos about the Digimon trading card game, so maybe check those out. Let me know what you think of those as well. It would mean a lot to me if you did. To close off, we definitely need to see a lot more. This is a very short trailer. It's only 1 minute and 40 seconds long. We don't know how evolutions will work. We don't know if the Digimon farm is still a thing. We don't know if the weird kind of type rock, paper, scissors situation is still going to be as present as it was in previous games, or combos or anything like that. We don't know why our characters are dressed up in kind of futuristic looking gear, or why the female protagonist's hat is so small, or why either of them have a gun. I'm also not sure if our characters are in school or not. We do see a student, but that doesn't mean that we are students. And I just finished Persona 5. I do not need to see another classroom section in a game again. Thanks. We will definitely be getting some answers soon. The release date is scheduled for 2025, and it is only scheduled for PS5 currently, which is bad news for me because I don't own one. So I hope that we see, like in other series, they eventually release it onto other things. As we get more news, I will try and cover it, so like I said, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will catch you next time.